So yeah, I thought I'd just do this quick presentation on mine exploration in the UK. It's a really cool different way of seeing the underground environment. So in Britain, we've got an extensive history of mining, dates all the way back to the Neolithic period, where flint mines have been found. Um, but and then we've got the copper mines, tin mines, which we then start seeing, and these date back to about 2000 BC, with flint being about 4000 BC. So it's a very very ancient profession. We then fast forward a bit to the Industrial Revolution. This is where mining became industrious. The technology was there to allow for more efficient mining. There was the demand for different minerals, and this basically created a boom in like the mining economy. This brought a great amount of wealth, especially in like the northern areas. There's entire communities built around mining. Unfortunately, in the 1980s, due to a number of factors, the mines did start closing, and this devastated vast parts of the UK, which still haven't recovered to this day, really. So it's an old profession and a really interesting one. So caves versus mines. Why go into a mine if you can just go explore a cave? Well, because they're different places. They're different environments. So caves are fantastic for seeing the natural process of things. It's amazing seeing formations that have developed drip by drip over hundreds of thousands of years. That's incredible. You go into a mine and you can see the cavernous work that's been carried out by human hands over centuries. So I mean, like when you see some of the caverns in these slate mines, they are like, I can't even describe just how big they are. They're just cavernous. Or when you see like the tiny passageways that are just big enough for a child to go through, and you see the pick marks and the tool marks left in the rock. It's just such a different experience. And leading on from that, you get to see history up close, like human history up close. Like I said, you're seeing tool marks that have been left by people. You're seeing graffiti that has been left on the rock by someone with their carbide lamp, over 100 years ago. You just don't get to see this stuff anywhere else. As well as physical artifacts, there's still there's still carts that are left underground. There's the tram lines. There's all the waterworks. So much just left in situ. And then you've got some really interesting stuff that happens when you create these unnatural environments. So a prime example are copper mines, where I highly recommend people Google like copper mines, because where the miners have gone in, they've exposed the mineral to oxygen, so the copper oxidizes, and you get these bright blue passageways that again you would not see anywhere else. So it's a very different place to be. So I've been to a number of places, predominantly North Wales and the Peak District is where I've done most of my exploration. There are mines all over the country. So Cornwall has an extensive history of mining. So there's loads of mines down in Cornwall, loads of mines going more up north in towards like Cumbria, but the majority of what I've done has been in the Peak District and in North Wales. So here's just a little rundown of some of the places I've been. So Park Mine, kicking off Park Mine, located in the Gwydir Forest of Erie. Again, I apologise in advance to any Welsh speakers. My Welsh is not, like, it's non-existent basically, so I may pronounce some of these wrong. But yeah, just to give a little history of this mine, it was a lead and zinc mine which operated between 1855 and 1963. Produced a hell of a lot of lead and zinc. And yeah, like I said, in 1963, it was no longer producing enough to be financially viable, so it closed its doors. But in doing that, everything was left behind. So we can see here, just on the left, we've got this kind of like scaffolding work. Again, got this pipe work. So this is quite. So the mine was designated as a site of special scientific interest. And now this is a designation that's given to places which are home to like unique and unusual phenomena, which is in need of protection, basically, in a kind of roundabout explanation of it. So it's got unique geological features, and it's got some weird but like biological. So this here is fungus that is growing in the mine. Weird. I know nothing about it, but you get this weird black fungus that just hangs down. Super weird. It's also the home of a lesser horseshoe bat. And these are protected. It's a protected bat species in the UK. It's got there's only like certain places where they roost. So as such, these places are protected places. Staying in North Wales, we then got Carmarthen Mine. So this is in kind of the area of Blaenau Ffestiniog, which was a prominent slate mining region or a community. So Blaenau Ffestiniog is a town, and it's surrounded by slate mines because the hills are just filled with it. So this was a massive operation. It ran between 1810 to 1997. It's now a tourist attraction. So check out, I believe it's Go Underground, and they run tours through there. You can sleep in there overnight. They'll take you on like all the zipline tours and everything. But as with Park Mine, everything was kind of left in situ. So here we've got an air drill, which would be it basically used compressed air to drill into the rock. So that's still there, you can look at. Got this little water wheel here that would have once run a generator, and then there's sleeping quarters underground. So all the bits and bobs left over by the miners, that's all been left in situ, and it's kind of been put into a way. It's like a little museum, which is really cool. So this can be accessed either as part of the paid tour, or you can speak to the company and they can give you the key to go in and explore yourself if you're a competent caver or mine explorer. This is my favourite trip of all time. I'm sure many of you who know me have heard me rave about the Crosaw Rosyth through trip. Again, located in the hills around Blaenau Ffestiniog. This is an SRT playground. There are there's walks across bridges. There's there wasn't a zip line when I went, but there is. I think one's been repaired recently, so there's a zip line in it. And the coolest part is when you abseil. So the center image here, when you abseil down into a canoe, and you canoe across this cavern to the other side. So a cool bit of history about the two mines. So the Crowsaw Ross's through trip, it refers to the two mines that you're going through. So kind of the only reason this through trip exists is a little bit about health and safety. So the owner of the mines worked out that if there was a collapse in either of the mines, individually there's pretty much no escape routes. However, by drilling through and connecting the two, you now had escape routes. So if there was a collapse in Crowsaw Mine, the miners could escape out through Rosyth. If there was a collapse in Rosyth Mine, they could escape out through Crowsaw. So it just enhanced not security, but like safety. This was a nice little hidden gem, mine off from mine. Again, located around Blanai Festiniak. I was very lucky to have been taken there by some of the guys from my caving club back home, the Red Rose Caving Club. They're mine enthusiasts, so they had a wealth of knowledge about this mine. So it was amazing to learn a bit about the history. So much like Carmarthen Mine, you had people living down here. So you'd have miners that would they would leave their homes at the start of the week, go up to the mine. They would then live. There was then accommodation built on the surface of the mine, and there's also accommodation built underground. So there's toilets left in there, there's sleeping quarters left in there, there's kitchens left in there, and all this can still be seen today. And you can kind of get like in the central image here, you can kind of see the scale of some of these passageways. Like, this is all man-made. There's no natural processes in here. And you had these great tram lines, coming down these steep inclines. So it really gives you a sense of kind of how hard and how harsh these places were to be in. So with many of these places operating in the 1800s, most of the guys going underground would have been working in pitch black. So they would they wouldn't rent, they'd buy a candle, and that candle would then be their light source for going into these places. So they'd go in, you find these like little pockets that have been hollowed out, they'd put the candle in the pocket, blow it out, do their mining work in complete blackness, and then when they need it again, light it, off they go. So absolutely incredibly harsh working conditions. There has been so many deaths in these mines. Like, every mine will have an extensive kind of head count to it, just because of the nature of the work being done. Like, these guys aren't using safety lines when they're working at heights. They're not using safety lines. They're walking on planks of wood. The safety isn't there how it is today. So it just highlights how harsh these environments can be. So moving from North Wales to the Peak District, this is a great little system, the Hillocks Not Low through trip. Hillocks Mine is a mix of natural cave and man-made passageway. So So yeah, so as you're moving throughout the system, you can kind of see, yeah, you're seeing the mix of the natural and the man-made. To get into, there's a couple of ways to get into the system. One is through it. There's like a crawl that comes in, and then the rest is all like 70 odd meter abseils to get into the system. So here on the left, you can see my feet dangling over a cavern, and you can see how it's all been like bricked off. So like about here is when you start seeing like the pick marks, and then it's just bolstered at the top, and yeah, it's quite cool. This is the main chamber that you can abseil into. Again, like, it's really hard to just show you the scale of these places. Just a nice little carved passageway here, and something I'll just point out on here. So this is what's called a coffin. It's called a coffin level. So a coffin level is basically it's a passageway that's carved out just enough. It's just big enough for a person to go in and mine and like chip away. So here you can see striations on the rock here. So you're just referring to the right hand image. Those are all tool marks. So those are marks left behind by miners. So you go into these places and you can see how it was mined. So what they'd be using basically like a chisel and hammer, basically, in these places. Next we have Wapping Mine, which is located in Lathkildale. Really, really cool mine, really cool history. So Wapping Mine is a mine that links up with Cumberland Cavern. So Cumberland Cavern is a naturally formed cave system. It once was a Victorian show cave. Unfortunately, all the speedothems were stolen from it, with people going in, basically harvesting the speedothems and then selling them. So that was a big problem for Cumberland Cavern. But Wapping Mine, really unusual place. It operated up until the 1960s, where it was then abandoned, and a local bike gang moved in and left extensive graffiti. So it kind of raised that question as to at what point does graffiti become archaeology? Because it's now considered to be an archaeological site, well, not an archaeological site, but it's an archaeological place. So yeah, so you can kind of see some of these features. You can just see, you know, these are not natural passageways. You can see on the left, you know, that squaring off. This is quite cool. So this bluey greeny stuff, I think is a basalt deposit. Don't quote me on it. So again, that's just from it's just a weird oxidization-y thing happening. I'm not a geologist, so anyone who knows better, please do like educate. There is a really, really cool pack that was put together by the local caving groups. That's got all the history of this mine and all the mineral information in it. So if anyone wants it, contact me, and either on Signal or whatever, and I will happily send it over. Here on the third from the left, so this is, I think, floor spar. So you get these things called vugs, and vugs are kind of like little windows where, as the miners have gone through, they've exposed this window, and it basically exposes a mineral vein. So you can see all these. So you have like solid rock, and then you have like the mineral in this. So that is basically what the miners would follow. So it's pretty cool to see a Vug still with the mineral in it. Really, really cool. And then on the right here, you can see me crouched underneath some precarious wooden stopes. So basically, these were used as supports to stabilize passageway. Because obviously, if you're working in this space, you're chipping through, you're wearing away the rock. It's gonna weaken and it's gonna make it more susceptible to collapse. So the miners would put up these wooden stopes just to act as support. We've then got Water Icicle Cavern. I think this was in the Monash area. Don't quote me. Really, really cool place. It's got it's another example of natural meeting man-made. The entrance in is a 30-meter abseil in. You then got some natural passageway and some mined out passageway. Weirdly enough, supposedly there's not a lot of evidence of mining, like how in the others you have like extensive pick marks and things. Supposedly there's not as much in this place, but it's got a long history of legends, which is quite cool. So earliest being World War II, it was supposedly used for black market meat, because obviously World War II time of rationing, which gave rise to black market trade. But going on a bit older than that, like the legend for the origin of the name of Water Ice Cavern is that the miners, that is what they call speleothems, because you've got the white, that pristine white formation. It does have a look of a water icicle, so that's kind of some of the local lore about that. It also has stories of ghostly sightings of Te Old Man. So this cave in particular, as well as Hillocks and Notlow as well. There's stories of so a caver was in this cave system. They were the last person to ascend up the pitch. They're by themselves at the bottom, and they just see a light. They just see this floating light. Now, he knows he's the only person down there. He's sure that he's the only person down there. Like, there's no one left behind. So he calls out to them. No reply. The light just moves towards him. Just keeps moving towards him. So, as anyone would, he freaks out, jumps onto the line, and just starts hoofing it up the pitch. And he looks down, and he can see this light just floating up towards him, chasing him, as though it's chasing him out of the system. And he goes and goes and goes and goes, gets to the top, looks back down, gone. So there's another story of a group going in. Now, the floor in here is really thick clay mud. Like, you cannot go in here without getting absolutely filthy. So this group go in, they do whatever they're doing, and they come back out. As they're coming back out towards the entrance, they see this pristine white handkerchief just on the floor, and none of them knows where it came from. It wasn't there when they started, it just appeared. So yeah, there's plenty of these stories, and I'm just referring specifically to the Peak District, because again, that's where I've done most of my caving, but there's plenty of these kind of ghost stories that are around these places. Like Cornwall's got plenty of its own folklore. Wales has its own folklore as well. So just to continue on that vein, we'll just talk a little bit about Te Old Man. So this, I think, something that's really, really cool is the fact that we've got a bit of folklore evolving around the kind of like the mining community and the mines in the area. So To Old Man is the name given to a carving that was found in the Peak District. The carving itself, from an archaeological perspective, it's over 1,000 years old, so it dates back to the Anglo-Saxon period, and it's the earliest depiction of a miner in the British Isles. So I mean, that in itself is pretty amazing. So from this, you get this development of folklore around it. So To Old Man is kind of a spirit who looks after the miners in the region. So there's stories of people having conversations or hearing conversations when there's no one else in the cave, well, no one else in the mine. There's stories of lights, like I just mentioned. There's stories with encounters of faceless miners. So To Old Man is kind of like the spiritual figure for miners in the region. So if you're ever visiting, just make sure to pay respect. Keep To Old Man on side, and he'll look after you and hopefully not cause too much mischief. Kind of also in the same vein, there is quite a lot not just of folklore, but also like of terminology that we still use today, so that comes from mining. So for example, the phrase to nick has some of its origins based in mining. So what used to happen is, again, this days about like the 1800s or so, but like mine owners would have to pay the king a set percentage of whatever they of like the value of what they've mined, and if you missed these payments, you'd get a nick. So it's like a notch in the wooden post at the entrance to your mine, and when you had 3 of these notches, pretty much anyone else could just come in and steal your mine, basically. So yeah, that's kind of where the phrase to nick comes from. So last little bit, we'll just talk about the risks, because it is risky. It is different to cave-in. There's a bit more to think about, and where there are mines in New Zealand, the kind of like the community around it the community around mining in the UK provides a much safer environment to here, and I'll explain a bit more about that. So in the UK, many of these mines are assessed by mine inspectors that are part of various clubs. So they'll inspect it on behalf of the local clubs. Scouts use these areas, so again, there is a level of inspection happening to ensure that these are safe places. There's comprehensive logs that are left, so especially anywhere where there's known bad air, if there's any system that's got known bad air, there will be a log, and if you encounter anything, you write it down this log, and you can look at this log before going in to basically form your own assessment, because you do find you'll get seasonal changes. So I can't remember, I think it's summer, I think it might be summer, where you can find some high concentrations of certain gases, and things ebb and flow, but there's this much better system in place for allowing for safe exploration. So I would highly recommend against any sort of mine exploration here, unless you're with someone who is extremely competent in the activity. So we'll talk about our first risk, bad air. So mines often have really poor ventilation, which can be caused by ventilation shafts being capped, or just like the system itself being completely sealed off. So iron mines especially, notorious for bad air, because where the miners have exposed the mineral, it oxidizes, so it uses up the oxygen in the environment. So gases we need to be aware of, and this does translate over into caving as well. So we've got carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and hydrogen sulfide. So all these can kill quickly if you're not aware of them. So like I said, any environment where you haven't got good ventilation, you can find these. Hydrogen sulfide especially can be found where you've got rotting natural material. So if you've got let's say you've got a 70-meter shaft with loads of rotting vegetation at the bottom, and like maybe like a side passageway, you can potentially be getting hydrogen sulfide produced in the lower levels, because don't forget, gas can settle either low or high, and that can change depending on like air pressures and things like that. So being aware of this, both in caving and mining, is really important. So if you're ever in an environment where you're starting to get headaches, dizziness, feeling of nausea, address it, and address it quickly. So just a quick anecdote from myself. Me and my friends went into a mine which the only entrance in was through a manhole cover, which descends down about like a 10-meter ladder climb. We went in. After about 10 minutes, all of us started experiencing headaches, and we all very quickly identified, right, we've got shared symptoms here, there's more than likely bad air, let's get out. So we did so very quickly. So yeah, just be very, very mindful of bad air. And like I said, not just mines, in caves as well. If you're exploring a new passageway, be aware of it. Next we have collapse risk. So again, mines are inherently more susceptible to collapse than natural form caves are, just simply because of the method of which it's created, and as well like the design of how it's been mined as well. So when you're exploring these places, I showed you the stopes, like the wooden supports for the stopes. So a stope is basically it's where the miners have followed a mineral vein, and these are often on angles. So what they'll do is they'll put in these supports to basically hold up the rock. And like I said, these places are abandoned, so those stopes are basically rotting wood. So when you navigate in these spaces, be really mindful of disturbing them, because that could be all that's stopping this rock wall from collapsing, basically. And it's the same with dead stacks. So dead stacks are mine blocks that are scrap. They get stacked up, and that stack then becomes a support for supporting rock, like to support the walls. So there has been a story from the Peak District where a caver went into a mine. Again, really well travelled one. Came out, accidentally dislodged dead stacks, and that caused a collapse. Luckily, the caver did get out fine. Like, they came out of this unscathed, but again, it just highlights how sensitive these places can be. And then lastly is the navigation side of things. So we all know how difficult it is to navigate some cave systems. Mine systems present a unique difficulty in the sense that where, yes, caves are labyrinths, there's more often than not some sort of feature that you can kind of draw yourself back to. In mines, if we look at the survey for Rosyth Mine, there is one exit adit that is open. There's about five adits, all with intersecting tunnels to create like a grid system. Like it's basically like a grid system, basically. So you can very easily become disorientated and lose your way. So that makes things. It makes it a bit more, not so much difficult, but it means that you do have to be on top of your navigation to make sure that you know where you are at all times to prevent any of that disorientation. But despite me saying it's risky, it's no different to caving in the sense that we all know the risks, and we all accept the risks and mitigate them in caving. It's exactly the same with mine exploration. So when you're in these environments, just go with someone who is experienced, and make sure that you're equally as aware of the risks as the people you go with, and if anything feels wrong, speak up and act on it. Like, don't let things cascade into catastrophe. So that's kind of everything from me. Like I said, if anyone wants any, I've got loads of PDFs and things about mines in the UK. Just ping me a message and I'm more than happy to talk more about it and send over videos that I've made and stuff like that. So thanks for listening, guys. Take it easy. Enjoy the rest of your meeting.